Van Show. He's a monster on a mission to talk to lots of folks at Van Show. He's a blue and fuzzy guy and he loves you most of all. Gonna talk to the writers.
Hey everybody, it's the Van Show. Welcome back. We're so happy to see you. Now today I've got a very special guest. I'm real excited to have him on the show. This is James Rollins. Say hi, James.
Hello everybody. Thanks, Van, for having me on your show. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. We're so happy to have you. Because we brought you on the show because you're a creative. You're an author.
Yep.
But it sounds like you didn't start out that way. Or
Nope.
maybe I'm mistaken. Can you tell us, when was it that you realized that writing was something you really wanted to do kind of full time?
Well, I read a lot growing up, and there's always the back of your mind, if you read a lot, you think, well, wouldn't it be cool to walk into a library or into a bookstore and see your book on a shelf? But I didn't seem like it was a clear career track towards that. You know, you can do this, this, and this, so you can become a successful veterinarian, and you can do this, and this, and fail horribly as a writer. But I love animals. I got that assignment in third grade where your teacher says, go home and write a little essay about what you want to be when you grow up. And I knew I wanted to be a veterinarian, but I remember sitting at my desk as a third grader, blank sheet of paper in front of me. It was a point of moral dilemma. I knew I wanted to put down veterinarian as my future career, just didn't know how to spell it. So I did the one thing all third graders hate to do. I got the dictionary and looked it up. I was that determined from third grade to be a veterinarian.
Wow.
So I still, like I said, I love that profession. I haven't totally given it up. But at the same time, I kept reading. And that was like, you know, throwing gasoline on that twisted corner of my brain that liked to spin stories. I grew up with 3 brothers and 3 sisters. I described them as my early audience for my storytelling. My mom called it lying. I call it storytelling. My goal was to terrorize my younger brothers and sisters. If it involved tears, all the better. Ooh. So pretty much today, I'm not doing pretty much the same thing. I'm trying to convince you of outlandish stories, and if tears are involved, all the better.
I mean, storytelling is all about not only like expressing your emotions, but evoking emotions out of others.
Of course. Whenever I teach writing, I ask people, what's the definition between nonfiction and fiction? And a lot of people say, well, one's true and one's not. One is based on fact, one is made up. And that's not necessarily true. Sometimes nonfiction can be very dramatic, and sometimes fiction can have a lot of actual true elements to them. But to me, the true definition between those two is that the goal of nonfiction is to give out facts to your reader. Your goal of fiction is to pass on emotions to your reader. And so that's what I always aim for, is to try to find ways in which to be passionate about my own writing so that comes across on the page.
Okay, so now you've written a couple books in your career. Just a few, right?
I think I'm working on my 47th novel.
Wow, that is incredible. My goodness. And there's a bit of a gamut there of like different types of novels that you write. Like,
yeah.
So there's kind of travel adventure, kind of thriller type books.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up reading everything. I wasn't just, I'm only going to read horror. I read horror, I read science fiction, I read fantasy, I read mysteries, I read action adventure, I read military thrillers. And so when I began writing, I wasn't quite sure what to pick, because I loved so many different things. And whenever I teach writing, I said you should write what you love to read, because readers have good nose on them. They can sense when an author is either chasing the market or is bored with their material that comes out on the page. Yeah. So if you're not passionate about that genre, you shouldn't be writing that genre. But because I read so many genres, I wasn't quite sure what to write. So I started with a thriller because that felt comfortable at that point. But for the breadth of my career, I've been doing 2 books a year. Generally, 1 book is a thriller every year. Either it's a standalone thriller or it's part of the Sigma universe. And then I do something else. I've done a middle school series. I've done a gothic sort of vampiric series. Ooh. Currently, I have out a new fantasy series, a big epic storyline. So I like to do something else for that other book of every year so that it feels fresh. I'll do the thriller and then something else every year.
Can you tell us a little bit about your new book?
Well, the new book is the second book in the fantasy series. Cradle of Ice is book 2. Starless Crown was book 1. The title of the series is the Moonfall series, because the main threat to this tidally locked planet is that because the world has stopped spinning ages ago, the moon has incrementally been creeping closer and closer to the planet. Now it's reached the point where it's going to crash into the planet.
Yikes!
So it's up to the main cast of characters to recognize that this is a threat that's going to happen, and then in a medieval level society, how can you possibly stop the moon from crashing into your planet? So that becomes the big quest of the series.
Oh my goodness! And how many books do you think will be in this series, or do you have an idea?
There'll be 4.
Okay.
I've outlined it all out. There'll be 4 books total. There's definitely an end spot. It won't be going on forever.
But I did want to ask you a bit about like writer's block, and if that's ever a thing for you, and if it is, like, do you have some tricks and tools you use to get you through it?
I have one shield against writer's block.
Oh.
And it's a little Post-it note that's on the side of my computer. It's basically a little short mantra. Today, I give myself permission to write crap.
Ah.
So I think what happens with a lot of writers is they get, especially when you're writing your second novel, where suddenly, when you're writing your first novel, you think, well, maybe no one's going to read this. I'm not going to worry about it. But when you're writing your second novel, somebody's going to read this. And that can intimidate you. You might have to think, oh, I've got to be perfect. My prose must be excellent. Each twist must make perfect sense. That can debilitate you. I found that I've just got to let it go, get that internal editor out of my head. I'm just going to write what needs to put words on the page and see what happens from there.
Well, James, thank you so much for coming on our show.
Thanks, Van. I appreciate it.
Yeah, this has been awesome. Goodbye.
Bye, everybody.